There are secrets that pass silently through generations, from mind to mind, without ever relying on numbers, formulas, or complicated calculations. What I am about to reveal to you was not discovered in accounting books, nor was it born on the tables of grand banks, but in the most invisible of places, the human mind. Many believe that getting rich requires a special talent for mathematics, that money only respects those who master spreadsheets and sums. But the truth is different, and it is so simple it's startling. Money does not respond to numbers. It responds to ideas, decisions, and above all, to a specific type of thought. How many people live in fear of talking about money? How many silently believe they were not born to prosper? How many hide behind the phrase, "I was never good with numbers," as if that were a permanent sentence? The fear of scarcity infiltrates early in life, shaping choices, limiting dreams, and turning intelligent people into prisoners of an invisible belief. And here is a truth that few accept. No one becomes poor from lack of intelligence, but from accepting a wrong idea about themselves for too long. During my youth as a reporter, I was still trying to understand why some people seem to have an invisible magnet for opportunities, while others struggled their entire lives just to survive. It was then that in an interview which would change the course of my existence, I stood before Andrew Carnegie, a man who had transformed thought into empires. In that meeting, while I believed I was merely gathering answers for a report, I barely knew I was receiving a mission. He did not speak to me of formulas or financial calculations. He spoke of something far deeper, the way a human being thinks before touching any money. He made me understand, without mincing words, that every great empire begins invisibly, within the mind, before gaining form in the world. And in that instant, something broke inside me, because I too carried fears. I too came from humble beginnings. I too had doubted my own potential. Upon leaving that meeting, I had not a single dollar in my pocket, but I carried an idea that was worth more than any fortune. Wealth begins with the decision to think differently. The greatest enemy of prosperity is not inflation, it is not crises, it is not a lack of education. The greatest enemy of prosperity is the habit of speaking ill of money, of treating it as something dirty, dangerous, or distant. How many times have you heard someone say that rich people are not happy? How many times have you heard that money only brings problems? These phrases enter the mind, settle in as truths, and begin to govern decisions. The human mind is like fertile ground. Everything planted grows. If you plant fear, you will reap insecurity. If you plant doubt, you will reap paralysis. If you plant clarity, you will reap direction. Money does not approach those who fear it. It approaches those who understand it. I learned early that it is not the value that changes a person, it is the person who changes the value. A person could receive $1 million today and, if their mind is still trained for scarcity, in a short time they will again be without anything. Another could start with nothing and, if their mind is adjusted for prosperity, will find paths where only walls once stood. The secret to getting rich without liking math lies precisely here, in the ability to consciously direct thoughts. Most do not fail by making mistakes in calculations, but by never having assumed control of their own thinking. Wealth obeys laws as exact as those of physics, but they are not in numbers, they are in mental habits. There is a silent pain that accompanies millions of people, the fear of not being able to support their own family, the dread of growing old depending on favors, the anguish of working a lifetime and still feeling that it is never enough. This fear does not arise from nowhere. It is born from small decisions repeated over the years, always guided by the same unconscious question, what if I fail? But almost no one asks, what if I succeed? The mind, when not trained, always chooses the route of protection, never that of expansion. And excessive protection generates stagnation. Stagnation disguised as prudence is one of the most subtle forms of poverty. In those days when I still walked between newsrooms and interviews, I myself felt the weight of uncertainty. There were nights when I wondered if those ideas would ever bear fruit. There were days when everything seemed too slow, too distant. But I continued, because a new image had already been planted within me. I no longer saw myself as a mere reporter. I was already beginning to see myself as someone entrusted with a greater mission, and when the mind changes its position, the world also changes its behavior. Money is effect, thought is cause. Where the mind goes, life follows. This is the true secret no one told you in school. It is not about mastering numbers, it is about mastering yourself. Poverty begins in fear, but wealth begins in decision. And every decision is born in silence, long before any visible action. What stops you today is not a lack of resources, it is the way you interpret your own capability. What holds you back is not the market, it is not the government, it is not luck. It is the mental pattern you repeat without realizing it. As long as you believe you need to be good at math to prosper, you will continue trying to win the wrong game. Real wealth begins when you take dominion over your thoughts, because the mind, when aligned, transforms any simple tool into an instrument of growth. There is a hidden power in every human being that is rarely awakened. This power does not require complex calculations. It requires clarity, decision, and courage to abandon old beliefs. Those who learn to think with purpose never again depend solely on luck. Those who learn to direct their own minds never again become prisoners of circumstances. And everything begins with an intimate, silent choice that no one sees, but that changes absolutely everything. For many years, I observed a curious pattern repeat across all layers of society. People who mastered numbers, accounts, and complex structures, but stumbled in the simplest decisions of their own lives, while others with modest education created fortunes from firm choices and a clear vision. This taught me something definitive. It is not math that decides your financial destiny. It is the image you hold of yourself when no one is looking. The mind works like an invisible thermostat. It regulates how far you can go. If that thermostat is set for scarcity, you might even happen upon some money, but you will soon lose it, almost without noticing. If it is set for prosperity, you can start with nothing and still move toward ever greater results. How many times have you had a good opportunity in your hands, but felt afraid to take a risk? How many times have you postponed a project because you thought you were not good enough yet? This is not prudence. This is self-sabotage disguised as caution. There was a period in my life when I myself almost gave up everything. Years of research, roads traveled, doors closed, promises unfulfilled. One day, sitting alone in a simple room with a few dollars in my pocket and a pile of notes in my hands, I was overcome by deep discouragement. For the first time, I seriously considered giving up. The feeling was one of total failure. Everything seemed in vain. That night I slept with a heavy mind and a tired heart, but upon waking something had changed. It was not money, it was not external news. It was the intimate decision to continue, even without guarantees. That silent choice saved my entire future. If I had succumbed to fear that day, nothing that came after would exist. This memory still carries a mixture of pain and gratitude, because it proved to me that the darkest moment almost always precedes the most decisive turning point. Most people do not fail due to lack of ability. They fail by stopping their journey a few steps before the result appears. Giving up alleviates pain in the short term, but exacts a high price in the long term. Persisting hurts for a period, but builds freedom. This is a trade-off almost no one teaches, but one that defines entire destinies. The common mind seeks comfort. The trained mind seeks direction. Comfort protects for an instant. Direction protects for a lifetime. Classic studies from early 20th century psychology showed that the brain responds differently when a person clearly visualizes what they wish to achieve. The nervous system begins to act as if that goal were already real, influencing decisions, reactions, and behaviors. This is exactly what great thinkers like William James taught decades ago. Thought creates the basis of behavior, and behavior creates results. It is not mysticism, it is human functioning. The mind follows what it accepts as true, and what it accepts ends up guiding every choice, from the small to the significant. Now, allow me to make an important pause here. If, up to this point, something said has resonated with you, if any of these ideas seem to speak to your own story, then this is the moment to strengthen this channel of growth. Click like and subscribe to the channel. This simple gesture helps this message reach other people who are also currently trapped in the same doubts you once felt. When you show support, you not only strengthen the channel, you participate in the transformation of many lives, including your own, because what you support grows. Let us return to money. People's biggest mistake is trying to solve with a spreadsheet what needs to be solved within one's identity. People often say, once I earn more, I'll change, but the process is actually reversed. First, you change internally, then the money changes externally. As long as someone sees themselves as merely surviving, all their decisions will be small. When they begin to see themselves as someone who builds, their decisions expand. Money is just a messenger. It reveals in material form how you've been treating yourself internally. How many people do you know who work tirelessly, arrive home exhausted, make every possible sacrifice, yet remain stuck in the same place? That's not a lack of effort, it's a lack of defined direction. Effort without direction generates fatigue. Direction with effort generates progress. The mind needs a clear target. Without it, it gets lost in daily urgencies, bills, and problems. With it, the mind begins to transform even difficulties into tools for growth. The deepest fear for almost everyone isn't running out of money, it's not being enough. That fear often disguises itself as financial insecurity, but it's truly personal insecurity. And here's a liberating truth. You don't need to be a math whiz to become wealthy, but you do need to learn to respect your own capacity to think big. Anyone who diminishes themselves will never build anything greater than their own doubt. Whoever allows themselves to think boldly discovers paths that didn't even exist before. Gradually, I started to realize that wealth adheres to a silent law. It accumulates around those who decide to take total responsibility for their own lives. There's no outsourcing your own destiny. As long as someone believes they depend on chance, they remain a hostage to circumstances. When they accept that their choices shape their future, they become the author of their own story. The mind is the soil where all fortune is planted. If the soil is contaminated by fear, doubt, and resignation, no matter how many seeds you sow, nothing will prosper. If the soil is prepared with clarity, purpose, and decision, even the smallest seed will blossom. The secret isn't in the numbers, it's in how you perceive yourself when you think about them. And perhaps you're hearing all this and wondering if there's still time, if it's still possible, if it's not too late. The answer is simple. As long as you're thinking, there's a path forward. As long as you're breathing, there's possibility. The only moment everything ends is when you decide to quit on the inside before you quit on the outside. And that decision, fortunately, is still entirely in your hands. At a certain point in my journey, I understood that most people don't have a money problem. They have a decision problem. They want guarantees before they act, security before they try, results before they change. But the world doesn't work that way. Life only responds after you take the first step, and almost always that step is taken with fear. How many times have you postponed a project waiting for the perfect moment? How many times have you told yourself you weren't ready yet, that you needed to learn more, that you needed more stability? The perfect moment is just fear's elegant disguise. It looks like prudence, but it acts as a prison. And while you wait too long, others, equally insecure but resolute, move forward right before your eyes. There was one particular night that still resonates strongly within me today. I had just received a series of consecutive rejections. Doors I thought were secure slammed shut all at once. I walked aimlessly for hours, with a knot in my chest tightening with every word of doubt that arose in my mind. At a certain point, I stopped in front of a darkened shop window, seeing only my own tired reflection. There, in that simple image, I realized something that changed everything. I was waiting for the world to believe in me before I believed in myself. That wounded me deep inside like a harsh truth. I felt anger at myself, shame, and at the same time a strange strength began to rise deep within my chest. I returned home that night, different from when I left. Not with guarantees, but with a new stance. The next day, my voice was no longer the same, my resolve was no longer the same, my presence was no longer the same. And the answers began to change, not because the world got easier, but because I stopped seeing myself as insignificant in the face of circumstances. Money will always respond to how you position yourself internally. Those who ask little of life receive little. Those who ask a lot but without conviction receive confusion. Those who ask a lot with clarity and resolve will encounter initial resistance but harvest strength in the end. Mental poverty isn't born from a lack of resources. It's born from a refusal to take calculated risks. And here is one of the most uncomfortable laws of existence. All expansion demands temporary discomfort. Fleeing discomfort is remaining small. Moving through it is growing. Consider the story of Henry Ford. Before building his empire, he faced failures that would make many give up for good. He was ridiculed, discredited, and almost ruined. But there was something he never negotiated: conviction. He didn't move forward because he was certain of everything. He moved forward because he refused to accept his own limitations as a final sentence. Many laughed before, many applauded after. This always repeats. First comes the doubt of others. Then comes the confirmation of results. Research conducted in the early decades of the 20th century revealed something groundbreaking. Workers who were treated as an important part of a process produced more, even when the physical conditions were worse. This proved that one's self-perception directly alters their performance. It's not the environment that determines the mind. It's the mind that redefines the environment. Whoever sees themselves as a cog lives as a cog. Whoever sees themselves as a creator begins to create. And now I want to propose the sole challenge of this entire journey. For 7 consecutive days, every morning, before starting any task, you will declare aloud, clearly and unhurriedly, the exact amount in dollars you wish to achieve in your life as if it were already a reality. For example, I am worth $1 million, or I will generate $50,000 this month. Then, you will state what kind of person you need to become to embody that reality. It's not an empty promise. It's an identity training. In 7 days, you won't become rich, but something far more powerful will begin to shift: your thought pattern. And when the pattern changes, the flow changes. Most financial fears aren't connected to money itself, but to judgment. Fear of making a mistake, fear of appearing incompetent, fear of others seeing the attempt and witnessing the fall. How many decisions have you failed to make for fear of others' opinions? How many dreams have been silenced before they even took shape because of a critical gaze? The fear of disapproval is one of the biggest saboteurs of success. It transforms potency into hesitation, and prolonged hesitation turns into regret. No fortune is built without some form of exposure. Those who wish to harvest in absolute silence usually end up harvesting only frustration. The world tests those who claim they want to grow. It observes who retreats, who insists, who hides, who takes a stand. And inevitably, it delivers more to those who prove ready to bear the weight of their own ambition. Your problem isn't disliking math. Your problem might be that you've learned to ask little from life. You might have normalized scarcity, turning the minimum into a goal. But the human mind wasn't made to survive. It was made to expand. When you shift your focus from protection to construction, everything begins to rearrange itself. The same world, the same conditions, the same hands, but a completely different vision. Money follows identity. It seeks those who are ready to manage it internally first. It moves away from those who still live divided between the desire to grow and the fear of exposure. Indecision repels opportunities. Firm decision, even imperfect, creates new paths. Perhaps you've spent your entire life trying to be too prudent, too cautious, too small to avoid suffering. But any life that completely avoids pain also completely avoids greatness. And there is no true growth where there isn't conscious risk. Inside you lies a potential that perhaps has never truly been demanded, and potential that isn't demanded rots in the form of frustration. Life doesn't reward intentions. It responds to decisions sustained over time. Those who decide based purely on emotion fall. Those who decide based on conviction build. And when you learn this, you understand that money was never the ultimate prize. It's merely the visible evidence of something much greater and invisible, the courage to have become someone who didn't exist before. The more I advanced in my studies and observations, the clearer it became that money never stayed alongside indecision. It doesn't cling to doubt. It doesn't build a home in hesitant minds. It flows naturally to those who have learned to sustain a decision even when everything around them seems unstable. There are people who spend their entire lives trying to avoid mistakes, and precisely for that reason, they never accomplish anything great. Making mistakes is part of building. The true failure isn't in falling, it's in refusing to get up. The mind that avoids error at all costs also avoids success in the same proportion. Many confuse security with stagnation. Staying in the same place feels secure because the ground is familiar, but this kind of security exacts an invisible price: the slow loss of self-confidence. Little by little, people grow accustomed to asking less from life, expecting less from themselves, accepting less than they deep down know they could experience. And then that strange feeling of emptiness is born, even when everything outwardly seems in order. Organized homes, stable routines, paid bills, and a silent restlessness that never sleeps. This emptiness isn't ingratitude, it's the call of potential that has been ignored for too long. Throughout my research, I've encountered stories of individuals who defied ridicule, skepticism, and extreme exhaustion, yet pressed on. Thomas Edison was one such person. How many times did he fail before his light finally triumphed over darkness? Hundreds, perhaps even more. Each frustrated attempt could have been the end. But in his mind, every failure was just an adjustment to the path. Where many saw defeat, he saw refinement. While others retreated, he persisted. And it's precisely this mindset that distinguishes those who merely try from those who build something lasting. Early in the century, serious studies on human behavior already indicated that persistence was directly linked to the identity an individual cultivated for themselves. It wasn't just willpower, it was self-image. Those who saw themselves as temporarily defeated kept trying. Those who viewed themselves as a definitive failure gave up at the first hurdle. The body obeys the mind. Money, consequently, obeys the very same invisible command. There was also a time in my life when I experienced the other side of decision-making, the unexpected joy that emerges when you choose to continue even without guarantees. After many years of hard work, solitary research, and nights where only conviction kept me going, I received confirmation that one of my works would finally reach a broad audience. When that news arrived, I didn't celebrate with parties or grand gestures. I sat in silence, eyes welling up, feeling a quiet, serene, almost disbelieving joy. It wasn't the public recognition that moved me, it was the inner certainty that I hadn't betrayed myself when everything seemed too difficult. That joy didn't stem from the financial outcome itself. It came from the faithfulness to a decision made years earlier, in complete silence. This is a point almost no one understands. The greatest reward of an aligned mind isn't money. It's the peace of not having given up on yourself. Money comes later as a consequence. Most chase the effect and ignore the cause. The cause will always be the quality of your decisions when no one is applauding. How many times have you felt like giving up, yet outwardly kept smiling so as not to worry anyone? How many nights have you gone to bed tired, not from the work itself, but from the feeling of going in circles? This happens because the human mind was made to advance. When it realizes it's stagnant, it begins to sicken in silence. The body tires, emotions weigh heavy, motivation dissolves. And people start to think the problem is money, when in reality, the problem is a lack of direction. Wealth doesn't emerge from hurried accumulation, it comes from well-directed consistency. It's not the sheer volume of effort that builds a solid future, it's the conscious repetition of correct decisions over time. Small, invisible choices made daily shape entire destinies. Those who learn this early save themselves years of suffering. Even those who learn it late can still change everything, because time responds faster to decision than to regret. The greatest risk isn't trying and failing. The greatest risk is spending your entire life trying to shield yourself from pain, only to realize in the end that you've also shielded yourself from your own greatness. There is no prosperity without exposure. There is no growth without some level of discomfort. Everything worth carrying requires strength to sustain. Money doesn't respect excuses. It responds to attitudes. It gravitates towards those who position themselves as capable of sustaining it. Those who run from financial responsibility before even achieving it, naturally push away the opportunities that could transform them. The mind needs to be larger than the amount it wishes to receive. Otherwise, success itself becomes an unbearable burden. You were not created merely to survive until the end of your days. There's something within you that calls for expansion, construction, expression. Ignoring this call doesn't destroy immediately, but slowly erodes the joy of living. Answering it requires courage, but it restores dignity, meaning, and direction. While many spend their lives trying to avoid mistakes, few realize that the biggest mistake is never truly trying. And that realization changes everything. Because when you understand that you don't need to be perfect, just consistent, the weight of expectation lifts from your shoulders. And without that weight, the journey finally begins to make sense. As the years passed, I understood something even more profound. Money doesn't just elude those who fear it, but also those who try to use it as an emotional escape. There are people who want to get rich to prove something to someone, to silence critics, to hide old wounds, and they almost always fail, not for lack of effort, but because they place the wrong weight on money. Money wasn't created to heal insecurities, but to expand what a person already is within. Those who try to use wealth as an anesthetic eventually discover that no amount in dollars can buy inner peace. But those who build wealth as a consequence of an aligned mind discover something rare: freedom without guilt. How many people have you seen earn a significant amount and still remain restless, distrustful, always expecting to lose everything? This happens because they became rich outwardly before becoming rich inwardly. The mind still operates in scarcity mode, even when the wallet is full. The true secret to getting rich without liking math isn't in adding figures, but in subtracting fears. Subtracting limiting beliefs. Subtracting excuses that repeat like an old record. Because everything you tolerate, you strengthen, and everything you strengthen governs your life. There's a silent phenomenon few people notice. When someone spends years telling themselves they weren't born to prosper, the body obeys that invisible command. Posture changes, tone of voice changes, decisions change. The person starts to refuse opportunities without realizing it. I've seen men reject proposals that could change their lives simply because deep down they didn't feel worthy. The mind creates walls where there were once only doors, and then still wonders why nothing gets through. Behavioral science, long before that name became popular, already demonstrated that emotions sustained over long periods shape health, choices, and even the perception of reality. People dominated by financial anxiety tend to make hasty choices. People dominated by a feeling of inadequacy tend to hide in predictable routines. People who cultivate inner confidence tend to withstand more pressure, more rejection, and more time until results appear. It's not a matter of luck. It's about emotional structure. There was a curious episode in my life that clearly illustrates this. On one occasion after a lecture, a man approached me and with a somewhat embarrassed smile, explained that he had tried to apply my teachings merely out of curiosity, without truly believing. He said he didn't fully trust it, but decided to try it out of stubbornness. He told me that after a few weeks of adjusting his way of thinking, he was unexpectedly promoted. As he recounted this, he laughed at himself, almost embarrassed for having doubted. That light laugh mixed with surprise stayed with me. It wasn't a triumphant roar of victory. It was the laugh of someone realizing they had been needlessly sabotaging themselves for a long time. That showed me that sometimes the biggest barrier between a person and their prosperity is merely the stubbornness in continuing to believe an old limitation. Most people don't lose money, they lose time. And time is the one resource that doesn't return. Money can be rebuilt, credit can be recovered, reputation can be restored. But the years you spend doubting yourself don't come back. Every single day lived below your true potential is an investment made in your own future frustration. This isn't a threat. It's an observation. You don't need to be a numerical genius. You just need to learn not to betray your own intuition when it calls for growth. You need to stop negotiating with your own mediocrity as if it were prudence. You need to learn to differentiate fear from caution. Fear paralyzes. Caution guides. One protects the ego, the other protects the future. How many decisions have you been postponing because you're still waiting for guarantees? How many times have you felt, deep down in your chest, that you should change something, but stayed in the same place just to avoid discomfort? The discomfort you avoid today is exactly what will charge you interest tomorrow. Life always exacts its price. The difference lies in when you choose to pay. The secret that has spanned generations isn't complex. It's just uncomfortable for those accustomed to diminishing themselves. Thought defines identity. Identity defines decision. Decision defines destiny. It's not mathematics that builds wealth. It's a mind trained not to bow before fear that constructs the foundation of all fortune. You weren't designed to repeat the same problems indefinitely. There's something within you that demands expansion, growth, overcoming challenges. Denying that call is merely surviving. Answering it is truly living. And truly living requires taking responsibility for becoming someone greater than yesterday. All prosperity begins with an inner authorization. When you authorize yourself to grow, the world begins to reorganize around that decision. Not because it became easier, but because you became stronger. And when the mind strengthens, money sooner or later simply follows the path that has already been cleared within you. Before moving on, I want to leave you with a silent invitation, almost like a whisper in your ear. If any of what I've said truly struck a chord with you, if you felt a weight in your heart, a spark of hope, or even an inexplicable restlessness, then there might be someone very close to you who needs to hear this message right now. Someone who has been too silent, too weary, too disheartened to speak up. Please share this video with that special person. Sometimes a single message delivered at just the right moment can prevent years of quiet struggle. Stay with me, because there's still so much more to uncover. Let's explore this together, and I'll catch you in the next video.